Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is the next video in the RE framework video series with UiPath. In the previous videos of the series, we have seen the introduction to UiPath. We have explored each and every state in RE framework. Link for both the videos is available in the descriptions. You can refer that. Now, with the help of RE framework, we are creating a process for the HR vertical known as the offer letter generation. This is the dispatcher part which we have already completed, and in this video we are going to cover the performer part. The dispatcher, whatever you are looking on the screen, is already completed. The link for the dispatcher video is in description and you can refer that. Now let us see the agenda for this video, which is the performer. Today, first of all, we are going to start coding the performer that we are going to do in the RE framework. Post that, we are going to deploy the automation to the orchestrator. We are going to run the process end to end. When I say end to end, we will run the process both for the dispatcher and the performer that will complete the automation. Once the process is executed, we are going to validate the queues. We are going to see what items are completed, what are failed. We are going to see the logs. We are also going to validate the offers which are sent. And at the end, we are also going to see the emails which are being sent out to the candidates. And all of this by a step-by-step demonstration. For the videos on this channel, if you go to the description, you have something which is called timestamp. In case you want to jump to a specific section, you can always go to the description and click on the respective timestamp and the video should jump to that section. And also, in case you need the files which are being demonstrated, you just have to email me on the email ID which is mentioned in the description, or you can just drop me a comment. I want to quickly show you what exactly we are going to build today. We are going to have an Excel as an input which will have candidate names and their status as hired, rejected, hired, and their email IDs. There would be a robot who will actually generate the offer letter for each one of the candidate like this. The offer letter is generated by the robot, and the robot will also send the offer letter to the respective email ID along with the offer letter as an attachment. So this is the complete use case which we are going to build today. I hope you finding this interesting. So let's get started. We are creating a project which is called the generate offer letter project for the vertical of human resources, and we are trying to build the project in RE framework. In the part 1 of the video, we have explained this as is manual process, that what is the manual process. I'll just give a quick recap that there are students who are giving the interview. For all the candidates who are giving the interview, the HR people have to maintain the status, they have to generate the offer letter, and they have to send an email. We have seen that how exactly can a robot help here and what is the automated process. We had decided to build the process in two parts. The first part is the dispatcher and the second part is called the performer. Now, in the first part of the video, we have already coded the dispatcher part where we are reading the Excel, filtering the data and adding the data to the orchestrator queue. So let me show you how that looks like. This is the Excel which we have given to the dispatcher to load. I am back in my orchestrator, and as we can see, the queue of HR offer hired is already loaded with the 12 candidates. Why this is coming as 12 candidate? Because only 12 candidates is having a status of hired. That means my dispatcher part is completed, and now in this video what we are going to do, we are going to cover the performer part. In the performer, we are going to read all the statuses of the candidate one by one. There is an offer letter template which we have created. Based on that template, the robot is going to generate the offer letters and is going to send the email as well. So if I just go back and if I show you, I will go back to the folder which we guys are referring, which is this one. We have this candidate information Excel which is already loaded to the queue, and we have this one which is called the offer letter template. This is the offer letter template that the robot is going to refer and will create the offer letter for all the transactions which we have got. That means for all the candidates whosoever is hired, the robot is going to generate the offer letter and send an email to them with the help of these email IDs. Okay, so that is what we are going to see in this video. That means we are going to code the performer. Okay, so I am back in my UiPath studio, and let's start to create the performer. To create the performer, first of all, I will come to my UiPath Studio, and performer we are going to create in the robotics enterprise framework. Why we are creating it? Because all our transactions are separate and we have already loaded it to the queue, creating a separate transactional process, right? So that's where I go and click on the robotics enterprise framework. In case you don't understand what is transactional process and all, we have explained all of the details about RE framework in the previous videos. I'll request you to watch that series. That will give you a clear understanding of RE framework, and then you will understand all of these bits. Okay, so let us start by creating the performer. So we call this as performer underscore what. Why we are creating the performer? We are creating the performer for the offer letter, right? HR offer letter and robotics enterprise framework, and I would say that this is the performer. It is a good practice because this thing is reflected in the orchestrator, right? So I would just say here that this is the HR offer letter process performer. I'll hit create. Now what would happen? RE framework will load. Let us just check whatever things we have to do are available. Let me just go back to the orchestrator. I can see that I have the queue available in the admin folder. The queue name is this. This is the queue which we are going to use in the performer. It has 12 items which are remaining. I have a template which I have to use to fill this template, and for all of these guys I would have to send an email, right, with using this email ID. Okay, so let us try to build that automation. I'll minimize all these things. Okay, now my performer is ready. So the first thing which you have to do is you have to go and click on the open main workflow. This is the place where RE framework starts its execution, right? We have seen in the previous videos that what are the different stages, what we have to do. Let's try to do those things practically. I'll click on the open main workflow, right? So first of all, the first thing which you have to do is you have to change this thing. It is always a good practice to start on a good note, right? So always make sure that you rename all these things. So HR performer generate offer letter. Now you might be thinking why we have to do it, because when you do at an enterprise level project, you are not the only developer, right? So you should always make sure that you include as much detail as you can, so that helps to the other developer, and when you are also coming back, you know that why you are doing it, right? So you can other details such as author, contact information, and other details, right? So that I leave it to you. So this is the general business process. I'll just go here and I say that this is the main, right? So this is the main thing which we are using. Okay, I'll quickly save this. Let us start by the initialization block. I'll double click on the initialization. It will open this block, and as we have seen, the first thing whichever we have to do, RE framework start from a file which is called a configuration file. Configuration file is located in the project inside the data folder. So as you can see, inside the project there is something called data, and then we have the config.xlsx. I'll double click the config file. So this is the file which the process is going to refer for the entire automation. When I say process, I mean this performer part. So these are the settings which we feel might change in future. The things are kept configurable so that we don't hard code the things. So for example, orchestrator queue name. So first of all, I would have to tell which queue I want to refer for this process. I go back to my orchestrator. We have seen that we are using this queue, HR of a letter head. I'll hit Control plus C, go back to my Excel. In here, pass the queue name. That means that in future, if the queue name changes, I don't have to change the automation. I'll hit Control plus F so that my changes are saved. Go back here. So first thing is what RE framework does, it loads the configuration file. I'll just open the first XAML. If you see here, this is the XAML which we have explained that what exactly is initall settings. If I click on the import arguments, right, so it is saying that I am going to read a file which is data.xlsx, which is nothing but this config file, and I am going to read the settings, constant seeds, and I am going to give you an object which is nothing but a dictionary. So now when my RE framework is running, I will get this entire sheet, all of these details in my config object, which is nothing but this one, right? So now this will act as my configuration for entire project. As a developer, I do not have to touch anything in the configuration file. All the code for reading the sheets, loading the dictionary is already done by UiPath for me. So I don't have to touch anything in the init all setting. It is just validate that where you are reading the config from, what are the sheets and what is the object. That's it. Now, do I have the queue name specified? Yes, I already have specified the queue name, so I don't need to worry about this thing also. This works for, as you can see, this provides the backward compatibility for 2018.13. So this thing works if in orchestrator queue name. So that means this main workflow has an argument, this one, which is called the orchestrator queue name. So if you are passing the orchestrator queue name as an argument to this one, then you should use this block, right? Otherwise, just leave it blank, and RE framework will not execute it, because here we have written that if this thing is blank, do not execute this thing, right? So for us, the queue name is coming from the config we have already specified, so we do not necessarily need to worry about this block. Okay, so the first thing is done, no need to touch here. I have nothing I have done here. The only thing which I have done till now is the queue name, right? Next thing, KillAllProcess. This is the XAML where you will start your automation. KillAllProcess, I'll click on the open workflow. Now this guy says killing of the processes. This is the XAML where we are going to put all the application which my performer is going to use. Okay, I'll repeat, all the application which my performer is going to use. So that means I have to generate an offer letter. We have to read this Excel, right? Okay, I do not have an Excel to read because we have the data which is already loaded into the queue. So we have to read the queue data. We have to generate an offer letter with the help of the Word, and we have to send an email. So if I talk from an application point of view, I just have this application which is called the Word. Okay, and let's say if I have this Excel somewhere open, you can always go and kill the Excels also. So how do I do that? In the killing process, you go to activity, take an activity called kill process, drag and drop it here, right? And in the process name, you have to specify which application you want to close or which application you want to kill. I go here and I say that this is Excel. That's it. We do not have to put the .exe here. This Excel will work. I just go to the properties and I say that this is the kill process for the Excel. What is the next? I have seen that I am going to use the Word, but how would I know how do I know that this is Excel, and how do I know what is the exe for this name? There is an easy trick for that. I'll just show it to you. For example, I have to quit the Word. Just right click on it, go to the open file location. Okay, it will open the shortcut for you and go to the properties. You could see at the end there is something which is this one, winword.exe. So that means I have to pass this word to the UiPath. So I will go back to the UiPath. In the process, I just type here winword.exe. .exe is not required. So that means now if I should run this flow, what would happen? It will kill the Excel and the Word for me. That is it. So in this XAML, you are going to kill all the things which your process is using. And why we are doing it? Because we want to start our automation in a clean environment. When we run in a production environment, there may be robots which are running before this automation. So they might have caused the Outlook to open, they might have caused the Excel to open, they might have caused the Word to open. So when I start my automation, I want my automation to start in a clean environment. So I am telling UiPath, whatever application my automation require, you just please go and kill them. When I say kill them, it is just like going to the task manager and killing all the instances and starting it fresh, right? So I have told UiPath that kill the Excel, kill the Word. Control S, job done, right? Now, if I come down, you can see that there is something which is called add log fields. I'll keep it to the default settings. Now, init all applications. This is the place where you are going to open the application which your performer is using. So if you remember, our performer is this one. We have to read the offer letter template, we have to generate the offer letter template, and we have to send the emails. Now if I ask you, is there any application involved? The answer would be no, because there is no such application which we have to open. Had it been there some application, for example an SAP application, a browser application where we have to key in some data, so that is the place you are going to use this block, which is called InitAllAplication. All you have to do is just go to the open workflow and specify whatever application you want to use, right? And when it says opening application, don't put your process or the activity before this, put your activity after this. So because this help in logging, right? So let's say I want to open a browser. For example, I am using an Acme site. So what you will do, you will come here and you will open the browser. So that means in the initialization phase, you will open all the things which you require by the process. Some of you might be thinking that Mukesh, we require the Word file. Why are you not opening the Word? Now there are two approaches to it. Either I can open the blank Word template and then I every time go to the file and click on open and then open and browse the document, right? Rather I have a feature of directly opening the Word document, right? So that is why for me it does not make a sense to open the Word application here and then browsing and opening that thing, right? So rather I will just keep this as blank. So open application is blank for me. But for any automation which you do, whatever you have killed, right, that is for the cleaning, you would kill the browser, you will kill all the applications. If your performer is going to use some application, we are going to open those in this block, right? This is done. If I come down, that completes my initialization, right? So in the initialization, I have just specified that what is the queue name. I have killed two things, which is the Excel and which is the Word, right? And this is done. Now in the end process, this is the first part which is done. Initialization is done, right? Now in the end process, what we are going to do for each of the application, right? What happens? See, whenever there is a new transaction, right? So whenever there is a, I'll just expand this little bit. So when exactly end process is getting executed? End process is getting executed whenever there is a no data or you get a system exception. So end process is the graceful close of application. So ideally your this block, which is this guy, InitAllAplication, and your close all application, which is nothing but this one. We have seen all of these things in the previous videos. I request, if you guys are not able to understand that why exactly this thing does, go back and watch that videos where we are explaining each step in detail, and that will give you a clear cut understanding. For this automation, we do not have any application to close, so this thing again goes blank. You always has an option to close the application. This is a graceful close. That means if I have to close this Chrome browser, there are two ways. Either by going and closing on this button, which is the close browser. The next way is going to the task manager, and from the task manager I say that I want to kill the Chrome browser. So I just go to the task manager, I find the Chrome exe, and I just go here and I say kill the browser, right? End the task, right? So that means there is soft kill and there is a hard kill. So hard kill is nothing what we have already done in the kill all process. So the close all application is handled like that. In case the soft kill does not work, catch that exception and forcefully kill. So what is the forceful kill? Kill all process.xaml. If I just open workflow, you can see that this is the same XAML which we have invoked to clean the environment, right? So same thing. So for me, the end process also is coded, right? Because I do not have opened any application, so I do not have a soft close of application. In future, when we do next use cases where we have some applications involved, then we will go and use the end process. Okay, this thing is done for me. Now let's come to the next stage, which is called the get transaction data. Now let me just double click and open this one. Get transaction data, as we already know, is a XAML which is responsible for getting the transaction one by one from the orchestrator queue. So what would happen here? When I run this process, I can see that I have 12 items available. all of these 12 items will be assigned to me one by one with the help of this guy, which is called get transaction data dot XAML, right? So this is the XAML who is responsible for giving me the data one by one. Now how would this guy know which queue to use, right? Because I would have to tell him. Let us try to see the arguments. I click on open workflow. Okay, so it says get the transaction item. So this is an activity which is used to get the transaction item from the orchestrator queue. If you look at the properties, if I let me just expand, so here this get transaction item is already coded to take the item from the config, and which is the key orchestrator queue name. If I go back here, I can see orchestrator queue name we have specified this queue. So that means that is where the get transaction item know that I have to get the item one by one from this queue. So that means I do not have to touch anything in this one. If you want to read it from some other queue, you just have to go and change this guy here. That's it. So that is where RE framework has made it very, very easy for us, right? Now, if a new transaction is retrieved, right, what happens here? UiPath will give you this field, right? All this field, transaction ID, transaction field, transaction item, and it depends on your implementation. What do you want next, right? So you always can customize and get more details. But for us, we already have the transactions added, so we no need to touch anything. We can just rely on this one, which is called out transaction item, right? So what is this out transaction item? Whenever UiPath goes and reads the transaction item from this guy, right, which is so what will happen? Read transaction, sorry, get transaction item will go to the orchestrator queue. It will read the first item and it will return you in the form of transaction item. If you will see the variable type of transaction item in the arguments, you can see it is nothing but a queue item. So that means all the queue items will be returned to me one by one. So I'll simply close this. I no need to do anything in this one. RE framework has made it very easy for me. If the initialization is successful, it will go to the get transaction data, and if you see here, it is giving me a new transaction. When I say new transaction, this is nothing but one queue item. So that means from this queue, I am going to get all these items one by one. So this is one transaction, this is second transaction, this is third transaction. So now RE framework says, Mukesh, I am going to give you this detail. Okay, I am going to give you this detail, and now you tell me what do you want to do with this detail. So if I go back to here, get transaction, get me that detail in the form of new transaction, and the process transaction is the place where we are going to write the actual business process. When I say actual business process, that means what is the thing which is repeating, right? What is the process which is repeating for all the transaction? So if you remember, for us it is we have to generate the offer letter for each and every candidate, right? And the candidate name is different, candidate email ID is different, and some other details, right? So that is where process.transaction is the place where your actual business logic will be written. So I'll just go here and double click on this guy. Okay, this is the place of process.xaml where we have to write the automation. By default, it is having two arguments, which is called the config and the transaction item. So what is this transaction item? RE framework is giving me the transaction item one by one from the queue. So now inside this process.xaml, I would have to write a code that what do I want to do with that transaction, right? So that means what I am going to do with these details. So this detail is something which would be different, but the fields are same, right? First name, last name, date, address, status, all these things are exactly the same. Now the thing is, what do I want to do with these details, right? So let us try to write the performer. In the performer, what we have to do, we have this template which is placed in my use case folder here. We have to first read this template and we have to replace this thing, if I just open, we have to replace this with the information which we are getting from the queue. So that means the first thing is we have to get the details from the queue. So I'll go to the activities and I'll take a sequence, right? In here I write that get the details from the queue, right? So because I would have to pass that details to the Word document, right, for the offer letter generated. Before that we would have to get those details. Let us try to get those details. I'll take a multiple assign activity here, right? So we have an assign and we have this multiple assign activity. I'll just drag and drop it here. It will ask me to create the variables. So let me create a variable for name. The name is going to be a string variable, so I'm writing str underscore name. We have already spoken in the variable things that what exactly are the best practices to follow. So make sure that you create the variables with the proper name, proper variable scope and everything, right? So string, that works for me. What are the next details we require for the offer letter? We require a name, we require an address, right? So the address, let me click on add and I can say here str underscore control plus k, that is the shortcut, str underscore address, right? It has created for the string. What else I require? I require the date, that on which date the offer letter has been rolled out, right? So usually that is the current date, right? So let me just go here and I create a variable which is called date. So I just write here date underscore current. How do I know that? How do we use the current date, right? So but again the date would be I forgot to hit control plus k, control a, control x, control k. Now this would be of date time. So I go here and I say browse for type and I say that this is nothing but a date time. It is very important to select the correct variable type, right? So system.datetime and hit OK. What else we require for this offer letter? We require the employer name also, right? So I just go here and I say control plus k str underscore employer name. Okay, so do I have the employer name in the queue? Let me check. We do not have the employer name in the queue, right? Because employer name would be different for different thing, right? And we have something which is called the email ID because we have to send an email also, right? So let me just click one more and I hit control plus k and I say str underscore email, right? So these are the thing which I require for my thing. Now where I would get all these details? So first of all, let me save this. I'll go back to the process. I can see now I have created these variables. Now we have to fill this variable. So first of all, RE framework is giving me this detail in transaction item. We have seen that in transaction item will have these details, right? So all I have to do is that I am telling UiPath that the name will be available in the transaction item dot specific content dot toString, right? So let me just copy this first name from here and paste it here. Okay, what is this expression? Get transaction data will go to the queue. It will give the get this transaction in the variable of queue item. The queue item will have all these details. Now I have all these details available in the performer. Why? Because RE framework is already passing that an input argument, which is nothing but the queue item. How do I get the value out of the queue item? So the queue item dot specific content. I am telling UiPath that from the queue item, you just give me the detail wherever it is the first name. So when the robot is picking this item, I will get the first name as Chevron, right? Okay, I have the last name also. Let me check whether we have in the offer letter. Okay, so in the offer letter we have the name. Here I think we should include the first name and the last name, and in here we should only have the first name. Okay, so let us do one thing. We will create one more here for the last name also. So I'll hit okay. So this one is nothing, so I can easily change this. You can go to variables and instead of the name, now I say that this is the first name. That's it. So I have got the first name. The same thing I will copy and paste it for all the others, right? So control A, control C. Where do I have the address? So address I have in this one, which is called address. So when I run this, I should get the address. I'll go back here and I say address. That's it. What is the current date? So date we want to roll out in the offer letter, right? Where is the date? The date should come here. So you can always take the date from the queue also. We have loaded the queue that when you are loading the data to the queue, that is that queue. But if you want to use the today's date, how we can do that? I can show it to you. So date current I can always use here now. That's it. Now we'll give you the current system date. Okay. Now what is the employer? Now for automation thing, the employer could be different. We always want to create an automation which can be reused. So the employer name would be different. So why don't we keep the employer name in the config? The reason being, employer name is something which might change in future, right? So let me go back to my config, which is this guy, and I say that I will create a key here, employer name. And who is the employer name? So for example, in here you can see that this is my channel logo. So let us say the employer name is this one only. Okay, this is my channel name, tutorial by Mukesh Kala. You can put any employer name and I just say here employer name. Okay, whenever you are creating a key in the config, make sure you always put this description. As of now, you understand and make sure that this name is also something. Don't put anything like this. It might work, but when it comes to the maintenance, when it comes to the support, it becomes very difficult, right? Always give a logical name to the key. Always give the value. This is something which you know, and always give the employer name to be used in offer letter, right? Because how would you know that what you have to do? See, RE framework has set a good example for us. So make sure you do follow the standards, right? So this is the key for me, employer name. Copy this key, go back to the automation. Now the employer name will come from the config, and you can see RE framework is stored the config in this one. The same concept from the config. I want the employer name in this variable. That's it. I have got the employer. Where is the email ID? The email ID is available in the transaction. So here, instead of the address, let me check what is the key. The key is email. Copy this, go back to the automation and job done, right? So I have got first name, address, and I have one more thing, last name. So I'll hit quickly create str underscore last name, and in here, okay, sorry, my bad. I will just write here in transaction item dot specific content. What is the key? The key would be coming from the queue, and the key is last name. Copy this guy, come back to here, put here last name and hit OK. That's it, right? So for all the transaction, I am getting the first name, current address, this, all this, right? Now, whenever you are doing any automation, it is always a recommendation to always have the logs. Logs is something that will help you in guiding that for which candidate what has happened, right? So for this, let me just go and quickly create a log here. How do I create a log? You can use an activity which is called log message activity. Now, beside this logs which are getting logged into the orchestrator, you always has an option to create the custom logs. Custom log is something which will be created on your folder. So sometime what might happen that you do not have access to the orchestrator. How you would know? So that is the place where custom logs come in picture. I have a dedicated video where I am explaining the importance of custom logs. How do you create it? It is very easy to integrate with RE framework. I'll put the links in the description for creating the custom logs. You can refer that. But as of now, we are going to use the standard one, which are the orchestrator logs. I am going to write an info level log, and I say that I just putting an information like processing offer for, I'll just put the first name here, right? So that way we know that whom we are processing. So str first name, but now there may be two candidates with the same first name, right? So let's do it like this. Processing the offer letter for first name and last name, right? Now every time I have to do this, let me create one more variable here, add, and let me create a variable which is called str underscore full name, right? Because this I would require every time. And how do we create a full name? I just say str first name, right, followed by a space and then str last name. So I have done a string concatenation using a plus, first name plus last name followed by a space, that gives me the full name. So in the log, now instead of doing this every time, I can say that we are the processing this for this full name. Hit OK. That's it, right? So we are reading the data from the queue. We are telling that we are the processing the offer for this guy. That will give me a log. This log will be visible in orchestrator, so we know that what we have to do. Get the details from the queue workflow is completed. We have got these details. Now for one candidate I have got all these details. That means I have all these details, Chevron, Benito, this address, this email, out, everything I have, right? Now what we have to do, we have to open this offer letter and fill up these details. This is a word application, so to do the word application I would have to use the word activities. Let me go to the activities and I say word. I do not have any activities for word. If you are following my tutorials, you would be knowing that why we are not getting this. If you know the answers, let me know in the comments. You can pause the video, let me know in the comments that why exactly we are not getting the word activities. If you get it right, thumbs up to you. Okay, let me go to the project. We are not getting the word activities because we have not added the dependencies here. How do I add the dependency? Is absolutely simple. Right click, click on the manage, go to all packages. In here we say word, UiPath.word.activities, click on install, hit save. What would happen? This would now give me the activities which are available to do the word automation. We'll wait for the dependencies to load. So then what we are going to do, we are going to read this word document which is the template, and then we are going to load it here. Okay, so I have added the dependencies of word. Let me go to the project and I can see the dependency of word activities is added here. Now let me go to the activities, and if I search here word, super, I can see all the word activities available. Okay, now what is the next thing we have to do? We have to read this template. So similarly, like Excel application scope, we have something which is called the word application scope. Again, follow a best practice. Your code should be structured, right? So in here in the sequence, I say that this sequence is for creating the offers, right? So this sequence is for creating the offer. Now how do I want to create the offer? First of all, I want to use the word application scope, right? So this is the word application scope. This will actually read the document path. Now where is the document located? The document is located on the folder, but if I browse the document like this, that means I would be hard coding the thing, right? So if I just do like this, that means this is nothing but a hard coding. Today I am running this automation. This automation is running on Mukesh machine. If I have to deliver this automation to a client, this automation will run on his machine, right? He may not have UiPath contain this folder structure. So that means this is the thing which might change or which will change in future. So that means we have to put this thing in a config file. How do I do that? Let me go to the properties, take this complete thing from here. I do control A, control X, right? I delete this thing from here, go back to our config, and I say that template path in here, this is the value. I'll just remove the double quotes, right? And I say here complete path of the template, or better to say offer template, right? So now instead of this thing, I'll just use this one which is called template path. Let me go back to my UiPath Studio. In here now it will ask me where do you want to read it, right? So okay, let me just go delete this thing. I say here in config. From the config, I have created a key for template path dot toString. Job done. Now in future, if the client want to change, they can just change the config. Okay. Word application scope for the offer template practice. Okay, we have read this one. Now what we have to do, we have to replace all these items, right? Name, address, date, this and this. How do I replace the word? So if you don't know how to do that, let's try to figure it out together. I just search here word, and if I see here, I say add hyperlink to the document, add picture, read the text, replace the picture, replace text in the document, right? This is what we have to do. Okay, let's try to figure it out. Replace text in the document. Now this is a simple activity which will search for some document, replace it with this one. Do we want to replace all? Yes or no? Job done. Absolutely simple activity. Love this one. Okay, now what we want to replace? So first of all, we want to search for this one which is called underscore name. So if you will see, I have purposefully put underscore in the fields which I want to replace, because I do not want this thing to be available anywhere. So whenever you are using such kind of things, right, make sure you put some special character or anything, that way you can actually replace the correct thing. Because if I just use employer here, it would replace this guy also. If I just use name here, it will replace this guy also, right? And my template will be screwed. That's where I have just put in special character which is called underscore. You can keep it anything, you can put after underscore here anything, right? But the idea is it should be uniquely, and it should be only have a single occurrence. In case you want to replace it to the entire thing, just say that you want to replace it for everything, right? So for me, the first thing I want to replace is underscore name. Let me just copy this thing from here, go back to my UiPath Studio, search for underscore name. What do you want to replace this with? So this is the name where the full name should come in picture, right? Because Mukesh Kala, then address, then dear Mukesh, right? So, and where exactly I have the full name? The full name I have stored in a variable which is called str full name. I just go here and say str full name. I am not getting the str full name. Now again, a question to you guys. Let me know in the comments why I am not getting the str full name. If you know the answer, again you are super. But if you don't know the answer, I would request you to watch the variables video clearly, because we are not getting the variable because of the scope, right? So the variables, if you will see, the scope of the variable is get the details from the queue. That means the variable are accessible only to this block, only to this block. The variables are not available here, and this one is inside the process, right? So all I have to do is go back to the variables pane and increase the scope from here to process. Let me do it for all the variables, because we want the variable to be accessible to the entire process flow. Okay, let's try to do it now. I'll go to save. In the generate offer letters, now I want to replace the name with str full name. That's it, right? Collapse this and make sure that you replace the text for the full name, right? That way I know that what I am doing. Copy, paste it again. What do you want to replace next? Replace the underscore address. So the same concept, go here, replace underscore address. Now what I want to do, I want to replace it with underscore address. Now here, go to the properties and change this thing from full name to address. So in case of exception, I know actually which block is breaking, right? So that's will take a little bit more second, but it will give you bigger benefit in the uh, next run or in the future run of the automation. Okay, now what is the date? The date is available here, so I just go here and I say in the automation, in here it's underscore date. So I just write here underscore date, and in here I want to replace it with current date dot toString, right? This is why, because we have got the date variable here. I have the date in offer letter also, in the queue also, right? So you can get it from the queue, but let's try to use this one only. Okay, this is done. Copy this, paste it here. Instead of the address, what is the next thing we have to do? This is done. Now dear name, so this is the name where I want. Okay, now there is a conflict here. This name is also the name and this name is also the name. How will UiPath know, right? So let me just go here and change this guy to say full name. So now let me just copy this full name from here. I go back to UiPath and in this one I just say here full name. That's it, right? And my replacing of full name is done, address is done. This one is for the date, right? And this one is for the first name only. So I just go here and I say underscore name. Make sure you write it clearly, otherwise the automation will break, right? So I just say here str underscore first name. Okay, this is done. Full name is done, address is done, date is done, name is done, employer. So copy paste this block again. I just say here this I want to do for the employer, and employer is in the field str underscore employer, and the key for the employer is nothing but underscore employer. That's it, right? So now I have replaced all the things. I have replaced the employer, I have replaced all of these things, right? What is the next thing I have to do? So the robot is going to get all these details from the transaction. It has created a template here. It is going to replace all of these things, and we want to send the offer letter not in a form of Word because we don't want anybody to change or manipulate it. We want to share it in the form of PDF, and with before sending, right, we also would like to save it for somewhere for our references, right? So we would like to save it for in, let's say, some folder. I just create a new folder here. Let's say I want to share the offer letters in this folders, right, where I can actually refer that whatever offer letter the bot has shared, right? So now how would I tell the robot to store the PDF offer letters here? First of all, how can I save it as PDF? Let me go to here, and if you see, I have got a pretty nice activity here which says save document as PDF. Let me drag and drop it in here, right? Then that will be inside the Word application scope, and I just say here save document as PDF. Now this guy is going to ask me, tell me where do you want to save the PDF. I would have to give it a folder and I will have to give it a name. Now the folder, again the same concept. The folder is this one for me. It will not be same for the different one, right? For the HR or for any other business. Copy it, go back to the config and say folder. Okay, I say offer letter folder path, and this is the path where I want to store the offer letter, right? So path to store the offer letters. That's it, right? I want to store the offer letters at this path, right? So offer letter folder path. Now in this path I want UiPath to save the offer letter with, now what do you want to give the name? So let us try to say that we want to save the offer letter with the full name of the candidate. So how do we do it? Path.combine. I am telling UiPath to combine the path whatever you get from the config in this variable, which is this key offer letter path, right? Okay, so I am telling UiPath that you want to have store the PDF, right? You store the PDF in the folder which I have stored in the config. Okay, now put a comma. That means what is the file name you want to put? The file name I want to put is str underscore full name, right? That is the file name I want to put. And after the file name, I would require to put a .pdf also. So after the file name, I say .pdf and hit OK. It has got some error. Let us check. Okay, of object to string in config. Okay, so I have not specified here to string, right? So because the path will be coming in the form of string, so I hope you understand this expression that I want to store the offer letter in this location, which I have got from the config file. I want to store the PDF with full name followed by .pdf, right? So hit just OK and UiPath will take that thing, right? So let me just get rid of the extra spaces. That will work, but that does not look good. So I just put the spaces to make you understand the expression. Now you guys understand the expression, so let me remove the extra spaces. Okay, so I'm telling UiPath that you save the offer letter as a PDF. Save offer letter as a PDF to this location. If there is any existing, just go and replace it. Okay, that you can always go and control yourself, that you do you want to replace, do you want to keep it, anything, right? So let us, this is done. Now once the offer letter is saved, the next thing what we want to do is we want to send an email, right? So to send an email, I will just again go to the activities. I will create a sequence. In the sequence, I say that this sequence is for sending the mails, right? So if you see here what we have done, so now if you see, if I write everything in a single code place, it would be difficult to manage, right? But I have used get details from the queue as a one sequence, creating the offer letter, sending the emails, right? So this looks pretty organized. So always try to write a organized code which is easy to manage, easy to read. Now sending the emails. Now to send the email, we have an activity. We have multiple activities actually. So if most of the enterprises would use this activity, which is called Outlook. Okay, so send Outlook. Okay, again I'm not getting the mail activities because we have not included it here. Let me go here and I say in the dependencies, manage the dependencies. To send the email, I would have to use the mail activities. I just go here and I say mail and I use uipath.mail.activity, click on install and save. I accept. Okay, so let us just wait for the dependencies to load. Okay, my dependencies are loaded. To send the emails, I use an activity called Outlook. So in the most of the enterprises, you will use this one, which is called send Outlook mail message activity. So this one will require you no configuration, right? If you go here, you do not have to select any input, any port, any servers, anything, right? So I'll just go and delete this activity. For me, I do not have the Outlook installed on this machine, so that's why I cannot use the Outlook. Now I want to use my Gmail to send an out email, right? So Gmail works with SMTP. So I use an activity which is called send SMTP mail message. Now send SMTP mail message activity will ask you these things. In the properties, you would have to provide the server, the port number, the email and the password, right? So if you want to use the Gmail for sending this communication or the email, you would have to configure these details. And how do you configure these details? You would have to get these details from the app password. So Gmail would not allow anyone to send email on your behalf, right? So for example, if I want to send email on your behalf, I cannot just put my email ID, my password and it thing, right? We would have to tell Gmail that, see Gmail, there is an application which is called UiPath and that will send an email from my behalf. So that means from my Gmail account, I would have to give that access to UiPath robot or to this any outside application, right? So that you have to set. To set that thing, I have created a this small video which you are seeing in the description or which is available here. You can just click on this link and that will help you to guide the SMTP. How do you get this SMTP details? For me, I have got already the SMTP details, so let me just fill it up here. But now we want to send an email. Now the question arises, two, who is the receiver, right? The two means whom do you want to send the email. We want to send the email to the candidate, which is this one, str email, right? So here I just go and say that I want to send that email to this guy, say str email. What do you want the email subject to be, right? So the email subject is something that might change in future, right? So I feel that, so let me just put a key here and I say email subject. I say email subject, I want to put at congratulations for the offer, right? So you can write it any other thing, put any special characters you want, and then say mail subject, right? Hit save. Go back to here. What else it require? Subject. Now where is the subject? Subject is available in the config. So I just say here in config, sorry, this is not the key. The key is this one, email subject. Copy this key, go back to automation, hit it and say dot toString. That's it. What do you want to write in the body? I want to write a message in the body which is something like this. I say email body and I say that the same thing, congratulations for the offer, and what else we get in an offer letter. Okay, please accept this offer within 10 days and terms and conditions, whatever you want to write, right? Terms and conditions are available, and okay, you can put any of your subjects, anything, whichever you want to write, right? So I just say that this is the mail body. So this is the mail body which the candidate is going to receive. I just copy this email body from here, copy this one, go back to the automation. In the body I say that the body should be coming from this one, a toString. Now what is the next thing I have to do? I have to attach the actual offer letter to the candidate, right? Now to attach the actual offer letter, I want to attach it in form of the PDF. The PDF I have created at this location, right? We have created the PDF at this one, right? Offer folder letter path and then str full name. This thing is creating the offer letter path, right? So you can always use copy paste this complete thing here, or a good way would be to create a variable just before it and I say PDF path, str underscore PDF underscore path, right? So this one would be a path. I just go to the variables string and make it available to the complete process. Now in the str PDF path, I just store this complete thing in the variable like this. Okay, now you are happy to use this variable here also, but let's keep it like this. And in the attach file, I say that I want to attach this PDF file, which is the complete path. So to do the attachment, you would have to use this complete PDF path. Hit OK, Control S, and now this automation is completed. It is giving me an error because I have not specified the SMTP details, right? 8080 I guess, if I am not sure, and the server is smtp.gmail.com. okay, so I will pull up the details and you would have to just use your from, who is the from email ID. So from, I want to send it from my email ID only, so I'll just specify here my email ID. Okay, and what is the name? So I just want to give the name as, I can just see here, in here I just see my name and I have written global HR manager. Okay, in case I become a global HR manager, so let's say I see here global HR manager, right? I want to be the sender as global HR manager Mukesh Kala. I want to send to this email. So do you want to CC everyone, BCC everyone? Is the body HTML? No, it's not for me. I just have to give my email ID and the password, right? So this secure password, you would have to get it from your Gmail. So for me, I'll just put my Gmail password here, whatever it is here in this secure password, right? Sorry, in the app password, sorry. So all these details I have configured, I have shown that how can you use. Please use that video and fill up this accordingly. Otherwise your email will not be sent via Gmail. You can use the same activity in your Get Outlook mail messages and this thing will work for you. Okay, now my automation is completed, but there is one big thing which is remaining in this entire automation, which is called the exception handling, right? We have not done any kind of exception handling. So if you remember, whenever we were discussing the robotics enterprise framework, we have been discussing that how we tackle the business exception, how we tackle the system exception. So in here I have not handled any business exception or any system exception, right? Let us try to handle those. Okay, so Process.xaml is the place where actually you are going to handle the business exception and you are going to take care of the system exception also. So if you go back to your main process, you will see that from this main.xaml, okay, from this Process.xaml, actually you get a success. If you get success, you get the new transaction. If you get business exception, you get a new transaction. In case of system exception, you go and you initialize everything and do all these things, right? But I would have to tell UiPath, right, that this is the business exception and this is the system exception. Now let us try to think of some of the business and the system exception. Let me go back here. I can see here that in this block I am getting all the details from the queue, right? This one. So if anything breaks while I am getting the data from the queue, there is nothing that my business or the HR people can do, right? Because that is something which is a technical thing, which is a system thing, right? Because we are getting this from the config, from the queues. So if you say to the HR people that the queue is not responding, they will not understand. So that means this block has been qualified for a system exception. So let me just quickly right click on it, encapsulate with a try catch block, and in here I just add an exception, which is this guy. This is the parent exception, as we have seen in the exceptional handling series, that why we are using this block. By using, again, just a quick recap, that this guy is the parent of all the exceptions. So any kind of exception will be handled here. Now what do you want to do here? In case I get an exception, I just want to add a log message. Okay, I want to get a log message activity here. I say that this is an error and I say that this is a system exception in this was for reading the data from queue, and I just say plus exception dot toString, right? So there is a dedicated full playlist on exception handling which I have created, guys. So if you don't understand the exceptional handling, I would request you to watch that exceptional handling playlist. There I am explaining try, catch, throw, throws, global exceptional handler, everything, and trust me, that will clear all your doubts on exceptional handling, right? So I have done the exceptional handling for this one. Now this was the exceptional handling for the getting the data. Now let me just encapsulate this one. So creating the offer, right? While creating the offer, it might happen that the robot might get into some exception, right? So this is the place, again, creating the offer. HR people can't help me, so I just go here and I say surround with try catch. Okay, and in here I say exception. I just go here, log message activity, it's an error, and in the message I say that exception in generating the offer, and I just say here plus exception dot toString. Okay, and this is the try catch for the exception. Okay, sorry, generation of offer. Now what happens if the send email activity fails, right? Now there can be multiple things of failing a send email. So if you'll go to here, you would see that if for some of the candidates who are hired, the email ID is not correct. See this one, the row number 17, you can see the email ID is not correct. The email ID is blank. The email ID is not correct. So for all this thing, this is something which the system cannot help, right? Because the HR people has given you a sheet which is having email which is not in a correct format and the Outlook will fail. So in case you get any exception while sending the email, right, what I can do is I can go here in the send SMTP email, you can actually categorize the exception, right? I will go here, and in here, while sending the email, right? So if you will see, if I get an exception while sending this one, which is a complete blank, right? If this is blank, how would the robot send an email? So that means I can raise a business exception at that place. So how do I raise a business exception? I just use an if activity before this one only, and I say that if str email is blank, how do we check? We just say that string dot is null or empty, str email, or string dot is null or white space, and I say str email. So I'm telling UiPath, in case the email is null, there is no value in the email, you just go and raise a business exception. So I just go here and I say a throw. Okay, so why we are using a throw? Because business exception is an explicit exception. We have seen in the exception handlings playlist that we have to throw business exception like this. New business rule exception, I say that email ID is blank, right? This is something which the robot cannot help. If the email ID is blank, where I'm going to send it? I say okay, and this one is for throw business exception. I am checking that if the email is blank, right? So two scenarios which might happen here. The email ID is blank, it will throw a business exception. It will say that I'm not going to execute it, and it will stop the process here only, and it will go to the next transaction. But in case the email ID is there and it is still getting that exception, now what should happen? Now again it should take care of it, right? So that means I will go here, I will encapsulate this complete thing, both the activities, into a try catch block. Now in the catch block, I have two set of exception. One is the business exception. This is the business rule exception. This means how do I want to handle the business rule exception? For the business rule exception, I want to just log a message of type error, and I say here that this is a business exception, right? And I just say whatever exception message we have received, right? As of now this is only one, but it can be more. And for all the other exception, I want to handle it with the help of exception block, because that is the parent, right? So guys, again I'm repeating, if you are not comfortable exception handling, please do watch that playlist, because exception handling is very important in the real-time projects. Okay, so in this error I say that this is nothing but an system exception. Okay, and I'm not rethrowing the exception, I'm just printing the exception here like this. Exception handling is also completed, right? Okay, one more thing in the exception handling. So since we are in the Process.xaml, RE framework has already done the exception handling for me. Okay, if I go back to the main, I can see that this XAML is encapsulated in a try catch block, and this is the block, the process transaction, which has done the business exception and the system exception. So whatever exception I am getting inside the Process.xaml has to bubble up to the parent, so that my transactions work accordingly and the correct status of the transaction is marked, right? So for that, as of now, if you will see what I am doing here, I am telling UiPath to handle this exception, and I am handling it here. That means I am not throwing this exception to the parent. So how would the invoking parent know that what exception it has generated? We have discussed all this thing in the exception video playlist, so I hope you already understand that thing, that to rethrow this exception to the parent, I simply has to use an activity which is called rethrow. Just drag and drop it here. That's it. Now this will bubble up this exception to the parent. Similarly, the same thing I am going to do in this one also, where in the exception, after the exception is printed in the log messages, I want to bubble the exception up to the parent, right? Similarly for the email, I'll just rename this one try catch to, this is the try catch for sending the mail, right? In case I get any exception, I want to handle it this way, right? So once we got business exception, I just want to rethrow it. Similarly, the same thing goes for the exception. I go to the activities and I just use an rethrow here. Okay, my code is completed, right? So what we are doing, just a quick recap. We are going here in the process.xaml. Okay, I'll just open the workflow. We are getting all the transaction one by one from the queue. We are generating the offer letter from the template, and we have created a word template, which the word template the robot will fill, and it will generate offer letter in the PDF format. Once it is generated, the same PDF has to be sent as an attachment. Okay, now here there is one challenge which I see. Whenever we are filling this template for the first time, the word application scope has a property of saving it. Okay, so this we have to take care. So if you go to the word application scope, if you will see here, it has the auto save property open, tick one, right? Which means that when my robot is working for the first transaction, it will just replace the text with the first transaction, and while it is done, it will save it the name, right? I don't want to save my template, because template again I would have to use for the second transaction. So how do I fix it? So I do not want the template to be saved by the first name, right? So I just remove this autosave option from here. Okay, and instead I say UiPath that once you have generated all the things, we have an activity in the word application scope which is called save as, right? The same way we do in the same way as a human we do. If I don't have to change this one, we always go here and we do a save as, right? The same thing I can do in UiPath also. If you see, we have an activity called save document as. Just drag and drop it here. I am telling UiPath that you just save this document in the same location where the PDF was getting. Let me just copy this from here, go to the save document. In the properties, all I have to do is paste it here, and instead of the .pdf, just type here .docx. That's it. Okay, so that means I don't want to save the template. I am telling UiPath to save the template of the Word document with the name of the candidate, and after it is done, you just create a PDF out of it. So this will also help the recruiter in case they want to make some changes to the existing offer. Okay, so I think we are done with this automation. Now it's done. It is also done here, right? So it is done. We have completed the process part, and in the one we have completed this one, we have done for the business exception, we have handled the system exception, and in the end process we have already seen that we are doing the closing of the application, and in the exception we are going to kill the processes, right? Okay, so this is done. Now to run this one, let us try to publish this thing to the orchestrator. So let me go to the design. I'll go and click on publish, right? So let's try to run this process from the orchestrator. Okay, so I'll go here and I say the version is 1.0.1. I hit on next, click on publish, and now this packet will be published to the orchestrator with the name of process_HR offer letter. Okay, I am back to my orchestrator. I'll just go to the processes, right? I do not see the performer yet. I have just the dispatcher available. I'll go here, click on add a process, and I just say here I want to deploy the performer, right? This has only one version. I hit on next, next, and create. Okay, now I have both the robots available. I have the dispatcher robot and I do have the performer robot also available, right? Let us try to create and run the dispatcher first, and then we go back and run the performer. Okay, so I come back to my queue. I can see that this queue has already some items, so let us try to do one thing. I'll go here, I will remove this queue. Okay, let's try to create an empty queue, and I just say that this is my queue. and add. Okay, as of now my queue is empty, it has got 0 items. Let me go back and check my dispatcher thing. So this is what we have created here. We have this candidate information.xlsx which is available. For all of the hired candidates, we want to generate an offer letter. The offer letter will be generated as per this template, which is this guy, offer letter.template. Yes, this one. And once the template are generated, we have to send that email. The generated offer letters would be available in the folder which is called offer letter. As of now it is blank, right? So let's go back to the orchestrator and try to run this process. In the real-time scenario, both of these processes would be scheduled with the help of triggers. We can always write orchestrator triggers to have the scheduling. Okay, but for this one I'll go to the automation. First go to the dispatcher and click on this one. So let me close the extra things, close the PPT, I say save. Okay, I go to the dispatcher and I say run the dispatcher, start the job and click on start. Now the dispatcher bot is running. The dispatcher bot is supposed to read the Excel, filter out the data only for the hired candidates and add those data to the queue, right? So let me go to the jobs, yeah, and let us see what is the status. I can see the dispatcher robot was successful in just a few seconds ago. If I just go here and click on view the logs, right? So let us see what are the logs we have generated. So I can see that total there were 19 items, right, in the Excel. Out of those 19, only 12 candidates are hired, right, and the 12 candidates are added to the queue successfully. Let me go back to the queue and validate whether if I have the items. I'll go to the automation. In the queues, I can see that this is the HR offer letter. Hit a quick refresh, go to the view transactions, and I can see there are 12 items which are added and all the items are in the new status. If I click on the view details, I can see the details here, right? So that means now my dispatcher is completed. Now there would be one more robot which is running, which is called performer. So as soon as I trigger the performer robot, it is supposed to pick the item one by one. So this 12 items should now be in the new state, and let's try to see what happens when we trigger the performer. I go back to the automation, and in here I just have to go to the performer HR robot and click on this which says start a job, and I just click on start, right? Now I am running the performer robot. The performer robot will go take the item one by one from the queue. It will just execute the process. So the command is sent to the UiPath assistant. I can see the robot has started the execution. This green button says that it is executing the HR performer, right? And now if I just see for the first candidate, the bot is replacing, generating the offer letter with the details which are getting from the queue, right? The next step is it should send the email, and now it should pick the next transaction, right? So let us see if it is able to pick the next transaction or not. Okay, so now if you would have seen, the save as is working for me. The save as is working. That means the robot is saving the template, and this is for the second candidate, Mara, right? So now if we do the save, then it would not get the template, right? Now it is filling for the Philip Gent, right? Dear Philip and the employer. Now all of these things the robot is doing from the UiPath queues, right? That means if any one of these transaction fails, it would have not an impact on the other transaction. Total, I have 12 hired candidates, so this robot is going to execute 12 times. And if you will see, I have just written the code only once, right? And it is doing the process for all the other transactions, right? Now what is the benefit here? Tomorrow, in case my transaction increases or decreases, I just have to increase the number of robots. Today I only have 12 offer letters. Tomorrow, if the offer letter increases from 12 to 1200, I just have to increase the number of robots who are executing the performer, right? I do not have to recode anything. So that is where the transactional processing come in picture, and RE framework with the help of UiPath queues is able to handle this thing very efficiently. Now once this thing is done, what is also happening in the background, the robot is also generating the logs. It is also sending the emails, right? Because we have told that you have to send the emails. And if you remember, intentionally for some of the candidates, hired candidates, we have put the wrong email IDs. So that means for all those transactions, I should have an exception. If the offer letter is generated, PDF generated successfully, letter is also sent, that means that transaction is successful, right? So we'll just wait for the automation to finish. If we write an unattended robot, then everything, whatever you are looking on the screen will happen in the background, and from an HR point of view or from a business point of view, you directly get the email. You don't have to wait, right? So let us just wait for all the transaction to finish, right? I can see, I can go back to the orchestrator. If I go to the jobs now, I can see the performer is successful, right? Now if you remember, we have put the logs for the jobs also, right? So how, what is the benefit? This is the benefit. If I go here and click on view the logs, to refresh, okay, so there are 108 logs which are generated. You always has an option to click on this export button. This will export the jobs whatever the robot has done in form of a CSV for you to easily go and explore, right? So I can see that the transaction number 1 was done for this guy Dulls, then the transaction number done to transaction number 3 was done for Philip, transaction number 4 was done for transaction number 5, and I can see that all this detail, right? So while if you will see, while it was processing transaction number 10, it has got some exception because email was not there, right? So in that case it has raised a system exception, right? So this log helped me to actually understand that what has went wrong with that thing. Now the same thing, let us try to see what is the status of the queue. Okay, so these are the logs. So this is the benefit of getting logs. Okay, so if I go back to my queue, okay, I'll go back to my admin folder, automation. This is the queues and this is one, right? So I can see 9 were successful, 6 has got exception. Okay, so let me go here and click on view transactions. Okay, now you might be thinking, Mukesh, you only had 12 transaction. Okay, why you have, so if you will see here, total we have 12 transaction, 9 got successful, so only 3 should have got failed, right? Why there is failure for 9 items? Okay, I'll try to explain that. First of all, let's try to see which all transactions are successful. If I go to the view transactions, right, you can see that these all transactions are successful. How do I know? You have to just go here and click on view details, right? So if you will see, I have got this transaction as successful, right? I can see there is no comments. Okay, so this transaction is successful. Now whenever we create the queue, right, when we created this queue, so if I just go here and click on edit, you would see that there is something which is called max number of retry. That means how many times I want to retry a transaction which is having a system exception, okay, or an application exception. So total I got 9 items successful. Out of the 9, 3 got an application exception. When 3 got an application exception, so those 3 items would have been retried twice. So 3 into 2 equal to 6. So how you can do that? You can always go to view transactions and you can see that first the item was failed, then it was retried, right? So failed, retried, and all this mechanism, everything is handled by RE framework. As we have seen, we have not done anything. We just have to change that number from 1 to 2 to 3 and that's it. Okay, now a question here, that we have also coded the flow for business exception, right? And why I do not see any business exception here? The reason for that is that the email ID which was wrong, for all the items the exception directly came at this moment only. Since it was blank, so this item got failed because it was not able to assign the blank item to the string variable. So here only it got a system exception and it did not reach this point where we have coded it for the business exception, right? So that means that is why we are not getting the business exception. But if you code it like that, you will always get here, instead of exception you would get a business exception. For any of the exception, you can always go to here, click on the view details, okay, and you would have this details available that the robot was trying to this one, and what was the reason that specified string is not in a form of email address, right? So that is why it got break, right? And it failed, then it retried. So first of all, the retried number was 1, that means we have to retry it once. Then 1 minus 1, the retry went to 0, and now the retry also failed, so that means it was stopped, right? So I hope now you understand that why we have here 9 and why we have 6 here. Okay, let's go back to the, I hope the queue is clear. Let's go back to the folder and see what has happened in the folder. In my folder I can see that there are 9 of our letters, right? Because 3 are having the exceptions. So I have got these items in the form of Word and in the form of PDF also, right? So let me just open any one of them. Okay, and I can see that a offer letter is generated for this guy, which is having this with this one, right? Let me just try to open the second one. This is for Philip Gent. Okay, for Philip Gent the offer is generated. Dear Philip, this is done. We have added the address for Philip, right? We can also validate the same with the help of the Excel which we have provided as input. Okay, so I can see that Etta Hun was hired. Okay, let us try to validate for Etta. So this is Etta Hun, right? So for Etta is offer is also generated. She is living at 2463 Johnson Street. So let us try to see. Etta is living at this one, right? So that means our this part is validated and working fine, right? We have not generated any offer for the rejected one. Why we have not generated? Because when we were adding the items to the queue, we added only the items, only the candidates who are hired, right? And for all of these candidates we have sent an email also, right? Let's try to validate the email. Okay, so this is the mailbox which I have used, which was mine, mukeshkala@outlook.com. So I can see that I have received all these emails here. If I just click on any one of those, I can see that congratulations for the offer. This is the subject which we have put. We have received it from the global HR manager because this is what we have put, if you remember. And it says congratulations for the offer. Please accept this offer within this one. Terms and conditions are available, right? This is what the subject we have put in the configuration file. This we have put in the config, the address and everything, right? And if you will see, all the offer letters are now available in my mailbox, right? So for just confirming for the Atahan, which is this one, if I just click on this, I can see that the same attachment which is available in the folder is sent as an attachment to the candidate as well. Okay, so this means that now I was successfully able to complete the process of generating the offer letter. We have seen how we can use the dispatcher, and we have also seen how we can use the performer also. Okay, so that is all for this video. I hope you were able to create the offer letter generation process for the HR vertical with me. And I hope now you have a clear understanding of the dispatcher and the performer model. If that is the case, please do like the video. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel, and happy automation.